Wide out. Power. Wide out. Power. Shove. Pull and pull, pull and pull, pull and pull. A. A.
This athlete certainly has started quickly here, Paula.
Yeah, he's attacking well up the hill as well. You can see him gritting his teeth, trying to keep his sights and his eyes fixed on, not on the top of the hill, but just on the heels of the British runner ahead of him, James St. Murray there to, yeah, he looks okay. I think he's comfortable. He's actually extended that gap slightly over the Portuguese team behind him. Belgium now moving through it and starting to challenge the Spanish team.
Yeah, McMurray's
Well, good evening, running slightly late. Hey, courtesy of the snow. What else could I say? But finally, we are here, and it is the Power Hour show, the show where we're talking running, where we're talking about runners, and we're looking at the different elements that help people become or achieve rather their running goals. And tonight I am joined, by a very close colleague and someone that is will have very useful information for us from a strength and conditioning standpoint. Alicia, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Stan. Thanks for the introduction.
Right, now you tell me, who is Lifts and Sprints Sport and Fitness? Just tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, Lifts and Sprints, it's quite self-explanatory. So we look at obviously the lifting as well as your sprint as the running side. I established Lifts and Sprints in 2015. Mainly as community projects, working within schools with kids, and then also doing conditioning with a varied range of athletes. Now we also run an athletics academy for juniors, as well as doing one-to-one S&C work for more advanced and adult athletes as well.
Okay. And how did you find yourself into the field of S&C, and what's your background?
So I was a junior athlete. I developed quite early, so I was naturally quite strong and powerful for my age group. But obviously, with that comes injuries. So I found transitioning from sort of junior into adult competition, I kept being rigged with all these injuries. So I ended up being sent to strength and conditioning coaches, and I literally found a passion for it and realised how everything sort of transfers over and links together. And it's that very age-old sort of statement, if I knew then what I know now. So as a coach as well, I sort of said, okay, let's put this all together. Let's develop the athletes as juniors or as entry-level athletes, as opposed to trying to fix them as adults. Although we do also do fixing adults as well, but just to sort of get it started at a young age, introducing sort of the strength and conditioning stuff alongside running.
Yeah, I like the position, or rather the reference you made there. If I knew then what I know now, and it's the story with many coaches and many people that work within the space of track and field and running, including runners themselves also. If only I knew a little bit more when I was younger, then I would probably have done things differently. And sad to say, but usually injury in itself, ironically, is the one that takes us back to try and start looking at why we got injured in the first place. What were we doing that got us injured, which in most cases we wouldn't have done without the injury. That kind of perspective wouldn't have been the case. Was that your case with yourself? What's your experience with that?
Almost. It was more sort of under the understanding of the injuries came with the strength and conditioning, if that made sense. So I was always sporty, but we kind of separate injury. We never look at injury as a result of imbalances or what we've been pushing ourselves through and what we're doing. It's always injuries like, oh, okay, so now we need to fix the injury instead of preventing an injury, essentially.
You mentioned imbalances there. Could you just get a little bit more into that one? Do people inherently have imbalances that they probably need to take care of to prevent injury?
I don't think anybody is perfectly balanced and everything works as it should. If it is, then absolutely fantastic. But even just having one leg longer than the other is going to affect how you train. It's going to affect your power output. So I'm going to touch on that a little bit later. Having so many of us are quad dominant, so it means our hamstrings aren't working as well. Glutes aren't working with the hamstrings. So those are the type of things what I mean when I say imbalances.
Yeah, okay. What is the role of lifestyle to these imbalances, from your own experience? What I've heard you explain there is the physiological components, maybe one biometric components, maybe one leg or one muscle is this way. How about lifestyle? Does it contribute to this? And what role has lifestyle, in a contribution to these imbalances?
We're sat down right now, Stan. Lifestyle. So many of us, we don't realise how we just carry ourselves throughout the day as well. So many people sit and we're hunched over. So we then create that imbalance between your pecs and your back. When we're sat, how we sit as well. We're shortening hip flexors, we're tightening those. Even if we do a lot of cycling as well, I know cycling is great, but when you transfer that over as well to track and field, we're shortening the hamstrings. And not lifestyle, so many of us do not stretch. We don't realize how inflexible we are, how immobile we are until you actually try and push your body through certain ranges of movement. So lifestyle has a massive impact, especially if we're touching back on developing athletes going through sort of school into being more independent. You realize that if you haven't got the knowledge, knowing that you need to do these things, and we stop having people telling us, making us do the stretches before and after, then that is a massive effect as well. You can see the difference between those who do that off their own back and those who only do it in sort of group settings.
You mentioned stretching there, and you highlight, and in my mind correctly so, its importance in overall development. And yet, why is it such a challenge, or why is it such a neglected area? In people's in athletes, either planned or unplanned development programs. Why is it such a problem from your own experience and your finding? Why is stretching something that people struggle with, if it is that important? Let me put it that way.
Why is it so difficult? That is
yes. Why is it so supposed to be so difficult when it's so important?
Because we don't stress the importance of it at all. We really don't. We stress your fitness, your muscular fitness, your aerobic fitness. It's only in sports where flexibility is massively important. So you look at your gymnastics, or even I started off, I actually have a background in martial arts. I started off, and stretching was 30-40% of what we did in training. So I think that goes back to lifestyle as well now. We're static until we do something, until we train, until it's not, I don't feel like it's been put to the forefront of many training programs at all. It's sort of a end note, if that makes sense. It's sort of just there in the small print, like do it if you can, when you can. But actually, if we reversed it a little bit, especially in developing athletes, and we let them know how important it is to return those muscles to their natural length, and work it sort of into training programs as opposed to something external to it. It will have such a massive difference just on even people's outlook on the importance of flexibility and mobility.
Yeah. You mentioned, key elements there of performance, but also of just lifestyle fitness, which is the ranges of motion, within people's movement patterns, and how, if those ranges of motion are compromised, themselves tend to, make the individual vulnerable, to injuries. And could you just extend a bit of your knowledge and experience with that? Because you have a lot of these casual runners, entry-level runners, or in some cases even experienced runners who don't think, oh, I will just run and I'll stretch along the way. My running is part of the stretch in itself. What's your take on that?
So if you're repeating a movement over and over and over again, and you think, yeah, that feels fine until so you're okay in that particular range of motion, or you think you're okay in that particular range of motion. As juniors, I want to say that we are naturally more flexible. We haven't stiffened up as much as when we get older. Obviously, we haven't built that sort of muscle mass that's going to create the tension, that's going to create the sort of that tightness that we associate with flexibility as older athletes. So keeping that in as developing athletes is so key. And putting that in your warm-up. So obviously you've got your flexibility, so your static stretches, so how you hold and just lengthen the muscle at one point, which is great post sessions. We don't really want to do that before loading the body or trying to run fast or anything like that, so we do that post. But putting in your mobility at the start of sessions obviously then increases your range of motion. It helps everything loosen up in the ways that you want it to. So I've got some juniors from age 6 who know their warm-up. They know they've got after their heart rate, they know they've got to do this mobility before they go into it. And a key sort of cue I use with them is we're teaching our body how to get into the positions we want it to, or how to strengthen the movements in those ranges of motions. And it's a lot easier to explain that to a 6 to 16-year-old than it is to try and then get like a 26-year-old or even a 46-year-old to now change what they've been doing, because it's ingrained in them that it's not that important, or you don't want to lose that tension to create that force, if that sort of makes sense.
Yeah. No, interesting, really. Very, very, very interesting. You do meet lots of runners, and I know there are, lots of runners that watch the show and listen to the show either live or, as a repeat series. Excuse me. And this is the situation, and it's a recurring view, really, about especially long distance runners. With the sprinters, they seem to get that message early, because if they don't get the message, then the muscles will tell them then they're not interested. But what message can you package for the middle and the long distance? The 3K, 5K park run type of runner. That the importance, and not only just to their reduction of the risk of injury, but also to performance itself. That if they've got the right, if they've got the optimal ranges of motion, it only facilitates, their movement patterns or the desired running patterns that they are looking after or they are trying to achieve. What's your experience with that? And what clues, what cues can you give, some of our listeners regarding that?
Okay, so mid to long distance runners. I think, so we touched on this a little bit before we came live. It's looking at that whole strength conditioning as a whole, and recognizing what conditioning actually entails. So where it's easy for someone to carry out a program that says conditioning if it's 100 squats and 100 press-ups and sit-ups to condition it. Like flexibility is part of that conditioning. It is like, it's so key to part of that conditioning because everything else you do is affected by those ranges of motion. So also if you feel like you're reaching a plateau, that it's the minor things that you need to look at. Or if you're looking to push a little bit harder, but you feel like you're at the max of your training stresses, then you can have a look at the small things. And the small things are sometimes that flexibility, that mobility. It's you might not realize how tight your calves are. And talking flexibility and mobility as well, that obviously it's not just your static stretching, it's myofascial release, it's getting those massages, it's getting your flush after training session. So all of that is incorporated into the stretching, into your flexibility. So I think that is something that's it's really key and really overlooked. And now especially is the perfect time to really work on all of those little things, as opposed to the things we use leading up to competition.
Yeah. We currently are in our third lockdown, and obviously that surely must impact some of the issues that you are talking about there, on mobilities and the ranges of motion because people's activity levels are probably, are kind of a bit restricted. What exactly are you, leagues and sprints, sport and fitness? How are you managing or helping your clients or your teams to cope with the restricted activity levels and the guidelines that are there? How are you coping with that?
It's a hard one. I'm going to quote you now, Stan. So I remember you saying, talking about my athletes and talking about how, as coaches, we claim athletes, but every athlete is in fact an individual. And I think with this lockdown, it really has. I think the main struggle has been sort of accommodating all of the individual motivations, all the individual needs of everyone. Activity levels have dropped. Not everyone's motivated now. We're not meeting up. The social side has massively gone, which is it's so key. It's so overlooked as well in sports. Your team becomes your family pretty much. So I know a lot of people now as individuals are really struggling to sort of keep that motivation up, to keep going. But even before lockdown, we do have, like I said before as well, my youngest athletes, they know their running drills, they know their mobility. So we do have tutorials on YouTube. as well as we do Zoom sessions as well at the moment. We have running fitness, which is where we literally just do the technique work. We go through all our running drills, and we also have a running strength and conditioning where we do those body weight exercises, and again just reinforce those movement patterns even though we are not being as active. I think it's actually harder with the older my older clients, or older athletes. And taking away sort of that face-to-face and that group environment, I think, is a massive one, and it comes back down to just communicating with everyone sort of on a one-to-one basis, which again is time-consuming when you're used to having 30 people in sort of 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever it may be, so then sort of taking time to go through everyone. But that's what coaching is about. It's making sure everyone is where they need to be, not only physically but mentally as well. So that's been a massive factor during these lockdowns, I think.
Yeah. Well, I will give you a water break, Alyssa, and when we come back, we're going to look at some of the work that you do with young people, and you could talk us through, some of the points from what you have already explained from a thematic point of view, but seeing it in practice, maybe you can break it down for us. And when we come back. Yes, if you've just joined us, we are talking strength and conditioning, for young people, and been joined tonight by, a strength and conditioning coach that transitioned from, an athlete, and their background to strength and conditioning is such that it's worth listening to, because it is very preventative, as it were, to all these issues of injury and limited performance. Let me have a look at let's have a look at some of the, some of the work that you do, Alyssa, with your athletes, and maybe you could enlighten us.
Down, wind, throw. Go get it. Down, wind, throw. Go get it. Down, wind, throw. Go get it.
Down, wide throw. What's going on there? What movement patterns are you trying to establish there?
Well, first of all, it's fun.
Yeah,
fun.
Definitely.
They don't realise how they're using all of their body weight behind that med ball, and the body angles, the positioning, actually developing that leg power. So I do actually do quite a bit of med ball work with sort of the juniors. So yeah, again, also is that working on hip strength, so that hinge sort of position, triple extension. I think that was a triple extension session that we were working on then. So yeah, just sort of trying to get them to experience the movement pattern in that sort of fun environment, and then transferring it over. Okay, you've just done that, you put all the power behind that, now let's take that into the run. So I think that was the aim of that session. But before we go into that, Stan, I wanted to talk about strength and conditioning as a whole, and our perspectives of it, and how we sort of get into junior training. So a lot of people focus on the strength part of strength and conditioning, and they look at heavy loads and thinking you need to be in a gym, and thinking it's really bad for developing athletes. And it's not, it's really not, especially as juniors, like you said about these exercises being preventative. We got to look at strength conditioning is more conditioning. We condition ourselves every day as we run, but we want to sort of strengthen those movement patterns to give us more efficient running styles or throwing styles or jumping styles. So don't be scared of strength conditioning. When you hear strength conditioning, it's not all about big muscles and flexing and increasing muscle mass. It is definitely more conditioning. It's conditioning the body to perform how we want it to perform. So creating those movement patterns.
Absolutely love that. I love that perspective there. So with that perspective, is it possible for young people, for children to do squats?
Yes,
is it
definitely.
Okay?
Definitely. Baby squat perfectly. It's so natural. It's the most natural position. You drop down into it. It's lifestyle that affects how we then squat. It's those imbalances we touched on earlier that then affect how we squat. So it is definitely, I think, we do obviously movement body, a lot of body weight sort of movements. It's not all running. I know a lot of people think athletics, especially for juniors, is just getting them to do laps. It's all running, it's all, and it's really not, or it shouldn't be, shall I say?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now, what would you say to folks, whether they are entry-level athletes or parents out there who have concerns, or indeed it might be even developing and performance athletes who think a squat is something you find in a gym?
I would literally take you from this squat position and put you in your blocks. It's so all of the exercises transfer, even down to your Olympic list. Obviously, we're not doing that with developing athletes, but you've got to build that base foundation. So never overlook your body weight sort of lunges, your squats. You will eventually end up loading those. You will develop that strength into power as muscles grow, as bones and tendons grow. It's about just keeping everything nice and balanced by doing the S&C work.
Yeah. I like the one you bring out there in that clip that we just watched there about fun. That's the first word you spoke to me there. It is fun, and then you went on to describe the movement patterns that are going on. But obviously for these kids, for these young people, they're not into that terminology. They're just much into the activity itself, and that approach in itself, for me, renders and allows athletes, young people, to be involved in strength and conditioning without the burden of strength and conditioning of the adult world.
Definitely. I think it's I say us as parents, I'm also a mum. It's us as parents, it's us as coaches that have this ideology of S&C and that fear of it could also be the unknown. So not a lot of people go through sort of strength and conditioning on their pathway to coaching, or if you come into athletics at an older age, you haven't really sort of gone through that sort of strength and conditioning. So it's sort of a fear of the unknown. So don't be scared of it. It's S&C isn't everything we do. If you pick something up today, you use the movement pattern, you use the strength conditioning. Strength conditioning is literally just strengthening that movement pattern. It's strengthening how you move and how conditioned you are for how many times you can repeat that movement. And if we look at running, we look at sprinting specifically, it's a series of jumps. We're repeating that movement over and over again. So if we can take the time to sort of build that body weight movement firing patterns as well, then it's so preventative, and it can really help develop an athlete before they get to the stage where it's then all just thrown at them. We're now going in the gym, we're now going in the weight room because you need to get stronger. But actually, if we build it up slowly, have patience as well with yourself. You don't have to go in and be doing snatches and cleans and everything else by the time you hit 16. Just have patience, and make sure you've got a good team around you. Make sure you've got people around you that understand what they're doing, and understand how to attach it to you as an individual athlete, or your child as an individual athlete, and recognize one shoe does not fit all at all. Obviously, we know the girls develop faster than the boys as well, so they're naturally going to be stronger. But from you know, 12, you're 13. So you can also you might find that the girls are developing that little bit more. They're getting those techniques because they are that little bit stronger. You can push them a little bit more with your core work. Sort of functional movements and things as well. So never compare yourself as well. You don't know the background that other people are coming from. Even sports that you've done before you come into performance, or before you meet that event group, or alongside what you're doing as well.
Super duper. Let's have a look at another clip here and tell us what movement patterns you're working on, and what about
up, keep it up. Good, don't lean back. Quicker contact, Heidi. Up, keep it up. Good, don't lean back. Quicker contact, Heidi.
Okay.
What's going on there? What conditioning is going on there?
Oh, a lot. So not only are we working on the foot placement, which is so overlooked as well, so that's why we use those mini hurdles in there, as well as your hip flexor, so we're doing the strengthening, and again, everything's triple extension. We want to switch from one foot to the other and getting them in that sort of position. We shorten the stride down with the mini hurdles, so they are really focused on that push into the ground, that switch between the hips, keeping them nice and stable. I think you can see one of the boys at the beginning, so he's slightly older, so he's using the med ball there as well, so we're really isolating, making the legs work without his arms. But he's also helping his upper body strength as well, because he's got a tendency to lean back, so we put the med ball there to sort of straighten him back out as well. But again, the mini hurdles are just fun. You don't realise they don't actually. I explain it. Obviously not too in depth. They know what they're looking for. They're looking for that contact. They're looking for flip flops on. Is the term I use. So keeping that dorsiflexion as well, and a nice tall position, which I actually stole from Neil, who was on your show a couple of times ago. So they all crown. They have to lengthen through the spine, and we're working obviously that lower body as well. Switch repetitive movement.
No, really impressed with that. Very impressive. Training strategies. Where what you're talking about there is really high performance biomechanics, and yet you are engaging these young people through that. You are having these young people interact with those, with that high performance, if you like, sort of investment that even the Olympic and world athletes, spend most of their time doing.
But why not? Why don't we do it? Why don't we do this at grassroots level? Why is it such a shock to then transfer over to an event group or performance squad, and you have all these new skills that you have to learn? Why not, if you're capable of doing it at that younger age, let's do it.
Yeah, there's another situation where coaches would not do, would struggle with that type of work with that age group because of shall we say coordination issues that the young people would have, and therefore the coaches might think, maybe not. It's easier to make them just run around the track, you know, and get them tired, and then well, in an hour, goodbye. You know, how have you managed to do that, and what's your thinking about the need to be so specific and so precise, go for such movement patterns that really require a lot of work on your part?
So we're always touching on ABCs. I can always tell when athletes are about to have a growth spurt or they've just had a growth spurt. It's like turning to those baby giraffes, and it's like they start doing the drills a little bit differently, but that's when you've got to put the work in. Whenever they're getting those changes, that's when we really need to reinforce that. So even if it's just walking drills. I know it's not easy to do. Especially if you've got big groups as well. That's a whole other story.
But
it's I think having the athletes or the juniors understand the importance of how it transfers into their running, they're more than happy to work on that as well. So if it's you're not quite getting it, then okay, we can go over here, you can go with an assistant coach, we can change the groups around a little bit if we need to, but we need to keep reinforcing those movements constantly. Same as the body is constantly growing, you have to grow with it.
How do you get the buy-in? How do the young people, you know, decide, yeah, we'll do what coaches say, and you know, how do you get a buy-in? Because for young people, that in itself also could be, oh, this is boring, oh, this is too much, why don't we have some bit of fun? How do you manage to get the buy-in from the young people to be able to do such precision work?
Sorry, to get the what? Sorry, did you say?
To do, you know, the kind of precision work that you do with them, you know, as in that last clip. How do you get them to buy in and believe in it and really want to do it as well? When, you know, other, it's common that coaches will not go into that area because the kids get bored soon enough, or the young people do tend to get bored with it.
I think, well, there's a few things with that. Firstly, all the academy parents are absolutely fantastic. They're absolutely fantastic. So if I say to them after a session, he's just had a growth spurt, we need to do this, X, Y, Z, blah, 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 then they tend to really support the athletes in doing that. I haven't actually had the experience where an athlete said they're bored with the exercise. I think because it can forever be challenging. If you've now got this movement, if you're now doing walking high knees, flat footed, and you feel like you've perfected it, okay, we're now going to go up into the toes, or okay, we're now going to add a weight in. There's always progressions or regressions you can do, and it's I feel like getting that balance of that mental sort of stimulation is really key to it. It's a very fine line between that mental stimulation and overload, and I think when you get overload is when kids start thinking it's boring, but it's boring because it's too challenging. Yeah. Or not challenging enough.
Absolutely. Yeah. Listen, last water break, and yes, time is not chasing us out of here. But we will need to talk about this last clip here because I find it pretty fascinating. After the water break, let's go around and talk about this one. Well, let's have a look at this one, Elisa, and you tell me what is going on.
I knew this
That's
was
worth
coming.
that's worth another look.
So, we obviously be doing a lot of harness work to work on your stride zero and that drive phase. So it was sort of highlighting that the importance of being able to move your body weight, use your body weight to sort of create that force in the direction we want it to go into. So obviously they always work with each other in pairs, and they challenged me.
All right.
It was sort of, okay, we'll give it a go. This is how you should, it doesn't matter. That's what I was saying. I think it came up as someone was holding someone a bit too much, or they weren't in the right position. So it was, I think I said to them, it doesn't matter. You should be able to, if you're in the right position, you should be able to push through it. So I was like, okay, this is the angle we want to be at. And then it was, coach, could we all, can you do it for us all? So yeah, that was just a bit of fun. I do have to say, anyone that walks past and sees any of my sessions, there's always a method to my madness. So when you see the tug of war or whatever they're doing, you might not look traditionally like athletics training, but there's always a reason for it. That strength and conditioning is at the base of sort of all those exercises that we do.
Yeah. Yeah, I must admit, I find all the clips that we've had a look at, there's a huge dosage of fun in it, and I think you can't teach young people without that component of fun. If they're not having fun, they probably will not really learn. There's no deeper learning that will be taking place there.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Even us as adults, Dan. How many meetings have you been in? It's like you're not taking in the information because you're not engaged. Not necessarily fun, but it's that engagement at the end of the day. So I think that's a massive thing for coaches and parents to consider when you are working with developing athletes. Because we can really emphasize that performance and put stress, especially when you have an athlete that comes to you and you think, oh, do you know what I mean? They're fast, or they're ready, or they're technically good, or you tend to forget that you are still number one dealing with an individual, not the idea that you have of them and where you see them going. And number two, like it should be fun. Like social element of it is so key to keeping people engaged in a sport as well.
Yeah. Listen, Alyssa, you have been super duper. All right, and I'm sure we could talk, for a little while longer, but our time is run out. And I know you don't just work with young people; you also work with, adults. You also work with high performance and developing athletes. I would like to, find out and hear your thoughts with that age group and the higher age group. How do you transition all this fun stuff with young people? How do you transition it with adults? It would be nice to invite you back, in the near future, so you can share that with us.
That would be fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, Stan.
Right, before you go, where is Leaps and Sprints Sports and Fitness?
We are on Facebook. We are also on Instagram. Liftsandsprints.com is the website. It is under development at the moment as well. But feel free, even on the Facebook page, give us a follow. If you have any questions, drop us a message. Like I said, we do have a YouTube channel, so we do have some tutorials on there as well. If you are stuck or looking for a few ideas, just reach out.
Listen, thank you very much for coming on the show, and the pleasure was mine to get some of your nuggets and your insights to the work that you do, and you are doing a splendid piece of work out there with young people. Like you put it, the way you put it there, if only you knew what you know now, and that in itself is, you know, what the young people there can all really just wish for. Know something a little bit more, you know, at the age that they are at, so that they can achieve their movement goals, they can attain their performance goals, and do so with reduced risk of injury. How about that for a package? So thank you very much, Lisa.
See you later.